I'm sure I'm not alone when I say that Hollow Knight Silksong has dominated most of my free time this week. Easily the most anticipated indie title of all time, the amount of hype and excitement for this game reached levels over the last couple of years that I did not think were possible. And yet, my early thoughts on the game are that, yeah, somehow it lives up to that hype. So in this video, I want to talk all about my experience with the game thus far, and explain why there is no doubt in my mind that this will be remembered as one of the very best games of 2025, and maybe even one of the best games of the decade. So before I get too far into my experience with Silksong, I think that I do need to start this conversation by talking about my experience with the original Hollow Knight. I missed it when it first released, but I eventually got around to it because I heard how great it was, and I played a fair amount of it, probably 5 to 6 to 7 hours. And I remember enjoying it, definitely thinking to myself that it was a very quality release. But I did get lost, and I was getting my ass kicked, and I got frustrated at a couple parts, and eventually kind of fell off of it, and I never went back. But this time, the hype, the anticipation, everything that surrounded Silksong, I really wanted to make sure I was there on day one so I could enjoy the zeitgeist of it all and just be a part of that experience. And I will say that right off the bat, Silksong started to click for me in a way that the original one really didn't. And I'm loving everything about my experience with it thus far. I've played for probably about 10 hours so far, still in Act 1, so relatively early, but I'm having a hard time putting it down. And much like I realized that the first game was very much a quality release, that is here as well, but like I said, this time it feels even better, and it feels like it is really resonating with me on so many different levels. So I think the most obvious place to start with this game, and I think that the place most people will start, is just how good it feels to play. Everything about it is phenomenal. Just moving the main character Hornet around, she feels great to move, incredibly responsive. Even the simplest actions of jumping or swinging your needle, it all feels incredibly responsive and oh so satisfying. It is the best. And obviously, one of the best parts about playing a Metroidvania is unlocking the different mechanics and different move sets as you go along. And I'm still kind of just dabbling in that a little bit. But every new unlock you find when you just get to add another piece to Hornet's moveset, I mean, it feels so good. A couple hours ago, I unlocked her, what is basically the glide ability. And just having that now, I mean, it feels like so many new doors have been opened up for me. And I love just going back to the areas I've spent so much time in before and just finding new secrets in there and just getting lost in them all over again. And yeah, I realize that that is a core aspect of all Metroidvanias, but it feels so well done and implemented here. And I can't wait to find more of Hornet's unlocks and to unlock more of her moveset. When I get that double jump that I know is a staple of all Metroidvanias, I can only imagine how good that is going to feel, because every unlock thus far has felt incredible. And as great as the movement is and the traversal is in this game, I think that combat might be even better. And I think one of Silksong's best aspects of combat is how simple it is. You're not really doing any crazy combos or any wild inputs. You basically just have, when you start out, your needle attack, which is just like a swipe of a sword. And yet it feels so good just connecting with an enemy. Now the feedback, Hornet goes flying backwards a little bit. It actually feels like an impactful, weighty hit every time. And even just killing the most basic enemy right off the bat feels so rewarding and so damn good. And then you pretty quickly start to unlock a couple of new moves, a dash attack, a projectile. You start to get some traps that you can use a little bit more strategically. And once you really start to see that move set start to be rounded out, I think it was around like the 7 or 8 hour mark for me where I started to realize like, oh, okay, now I'm starting to feel like a badass a little bit, and things really started to click. That badass feeling kind of starts to fade away when you're maybe getting your ass kicked by the same boss over and over again, which we'll talk more about in a minute. But it's still even when I'm getting my ass kicked by a boss or a really tough enemy, combat never stops feeling amazing. And, I've played a pretty decent amount of 2D action games and Metroidvanias in my day, and I don't think that any of them feel as good as Hollow Knight Silksong does. It is truly a testament to this game and Team Cherry that they were able to pull something off like this, because the game, even if you're just playing for a couple minutes, it feels fantastic. And I've been loving every second of that aspect of it. And equally as impressive, the world itself, the atmosphere, everything on display here in that regard has been pretty much blowing my mind as well. The graphical style, it's simple, sure, but it's gorgeous. I love the world. There's kind of a messed up mystery at the heart of it where you're not sure why things are happening the way they are. And it's not like the story is in your face. Like a lot of these games, it's kind of in the background, but there is a very compelling thread there that is pulling you along and making you want to see what is next. And you become invested in Hornet's journey in a way that I really didn't think I was going to be. So I've really enjoyed that. And I think another big part of the reason for that is because of how good the cast of characters are. And like I said, there's not a ton of dialogue, there's not a ton of story in your face, but you do meet your fair share of NPCs as you play. And they're all super charming. They feel like fleshed out characters, whether it's like the traveling flea circus and that group of weirdos, or the map maker who's always singing as she's writing her maps and everything. It's each character very much has their own distinct personality traits and their own quirks, and it feels good talking with them and interacting with them. And you're always kind of looking forward to that next NPC encounter, even if it's not a huge part of the game. It really helps create a nice counterbalance between the world itself, which is pretty bleak and dark and depressing, but then you also have all of the charming, fun NPCs, so it never gets too heavy. It creates a real nice blend of fun, lighthearted moments and a kind of really messed up world. I do think that the other part of Silksong that I do need to touch on is obviously the thing that I've been seeing a lot on the internet, is the whole difficulty conversation of things. As I'm recording this video, I think it was yesterday, news of a patch coming out next week on consoles started to hit the internet, and they're toning down some of the early game bosses. And as you can imagine, it's the internet, so it's created quite kind of a firestorm, with some people happy about it, some people saying that they shouldn't be doing that, and you get the whole difficulty discourse that you get with these games quite a bit. And I think it's interesting. It's kind of funny. One of the bosses that they said they're toning down in the patch is a Morwing or something like that, I think, is actually the boss I'm stuck on right now. So part of me is like, okay, I'm okay with them toning it down a little bit, because that boss has been kicking my ass. So I'm okay with that. But I do understand the frustration. I know a lot of people have called for maybe an easier difficulty mode in general, so players have the choice and we don't have to be at the mercy of a patch. But part of me personally, I do like kind of having a universal difficulty mode for this sort of game. I think there's merit in every player having the same experience, and I think there's something cool about that, and I think it creates good conversation and discussion. I think it helps breed tip sharing and players trying to get through that sort of thing together. And I think you lose some of that when you're able to just toggle a switch between easy and normal and hard mode. I think it's cool to have a challenging game like this with one universal difficulty setting. At the same time, I do know that that kind of leads to an accessibility discussion, and maybe especially in a total single player game like this, there should be some options. But personally, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's kind of cool. And as much as I've been getting my ass kicked, especially by this damn Morwing boss or whatever his name is, I've still really been enjoying my time, and I just know it's going to make it all the more rewarding when I do finally beat him. I will say on that subject though, my big complaint that I do think is kind of a misstep by the team is, unless I'm missing something with a lot of these bosses, there are some pretty brutal runbacks where you die and then the closest respawn point is like 45 seconds away, and you got to go all the way back to the boss. And I know it doesn't sound like much, but when you're replaying some of these boss battles 20 to 30 times, it kind of does start to take a toll, and it can be a little bit frustrating in that regard. So I do wish that maybe that was tuned just a little bit better, but hey, like I said, I understand this is a difficult game, and that's part of it. And you know, like I said, when you do finally overcome these hurdles and these obstacles that the game throws at you, it makes it that much sweeter. So there you have it. Like I said earlier, as someone who only played a little bit of the first Hollow Knight and is still in the fairly early stages of this one, I might not be as qualified as some of the real Hollow Knight freaks out there to really speak on Silksong, but as a relative newcomer to the series, I have to say that after just a handful of hours with this game, I get it. I understand why the hype and the anticipation for this one was so out of control. Hollow Knight Silksong is fantastic, and I can't wait to continue my adventure through its bleak world. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.